Hello, the Pioneer viewers. Today we will again convey to you the heavy blow that the Ukrainian army struck the Russian army on the front line. As you know, there is an intense conflict on the Kherson front line. In recent days, we often include developments on the Kherson front line in our agenda reports. The front line is quite active, but there are also very critical developments behind the front line. In our previous reports, we shared with you that the ATACMS attacks carried out by the Ukrainian army. The Ukrainian army carried out a similar attack again, but this attack was carried out with HIMARS missiles. The attack in question was large and very successful. Therefore, the effect was also quite strong. We observed that there is a great panic in the Russian sources. Most Russian sources are very angry with the Putin administration. How is it that the Ukrainian army is still able to carry out these critical attacks against the Russian army? Doesn't the Russian army have the power to prevent these attacks? Russian sources have been looking for answers to these questions in recent days. Let's take a look at the answers solved by the Russian sources and the details of the attacks of the Ukrainian army. As the Pioneer team, we continue to convey the Russia-Ukraine war to you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so as not to miss our daily map reports and reports on the agenda. You can also help us improve ourselves and reach more people by commenting on our videos. Let's start, if you're ready, the Pioneer reports. As we mentioned, the Ukrainian army carried out a very critical attack using HIMARS missiles. The target of the attack was Skadovsk on the Kherson front line. In fact, during these attacks, Russian commanders were meeting in a building and evaluating the latest situation on the front line. There is no information on exactly when the attack took place. Again, according to the allegations, the Ukrainian army had been closely following this region for a long time because there was an extraordinary mobility in the region. There were intelligence reports that many Russian commanders were seen especially in the targeted building. In our previous report, we told you that the Ukrainian army carried out an attack with ATACMS missiles and destroyed 3 Russian commanders in this attack. Probably the Ukrainian army is looking for Topelsky in these days. You know the situation with Topelsky. The famous Russian commander has had a relationship with Vladimir Putin, the president of the Russian Federation. However, he is very popular and respected commander in the army. Therefore, the destruction of him by the Ukrainian army will give the Ukrainian army a great advantage. This is an undeniable fact. It was also claimed that Putin had some plans for the destruction of Topelsky. Therefore, we can say that Topelsky is actually the target of the attacks carried out by the Ukrainian army on the Russian command centers on the Kherson front line. Let's continue with the developments related to the attack. According to the reports, Russian commanders were holding a very critical meeting in a building on Skadovsk. The main agenda of the meeting was the losses of the Russian army on the Kherson front line. There was silence around. This silence was broken by the HIMARS missiles launched by the Ukrainian army. The missile hit the building where the Russian commanders were located with a great noise. The second floor of the building was largely destroyed. Coincidentally, the Russian commanders were holding their meeting on the second floor of the building. According to the reports, 5 senior Russian officers were destroyed. It is noteworthy that the Ukrainian army hit the second floor, where the Russian commanders were meeting, with a direct hit. It is possible to draw the following conclusion. Despite all the time that has passed, Ukrainian intelligence is still conducting very successful espionage activities. So much so that the floor where the Russian commanders are located, the time of the meeting, and all of the information needed are provided by the Ukrainian intelligence. This is a very important success. However, we should not ignore this possibility. We have already mentioned that there are reports that Topelsky is being tried to be eliminated. The commanders' meeting may have been leaked to Ukraine for the different purpose. We still have no data on Topelsky. Was Topelsky at the meeting, or where is Topelsky now? There is no exact information. Therefore, this possibility should not be overlooked. In addition, the biggest request of the Russian sources in recent days is to hear from Topelsky, because Ukraine has destroyed many Russian officers in a row. Moreover, the Kherson front line, where Topelsky is also stationed, therefore Russian sources are worried. Even the possibility of losing a commander like Topelsky causes great fear in the Russian sources. The Ukrainian National Resistance Center also made statements about the attack. In this statement, it was announced that according to the unconfirmed information, the Ukrainian army targeted a building belonging to the Russian Federal Security Service. According to the Ukrainian sources, this building was a temporary deployment point of the Russian Federal Security Service. However, as we mentioned, the data in the hands of the Ukrainian National Resistance Center has not yet been verified. The important point here in the terms of the course of the war is the significant losses of the Russian command level. Let's come to the latest situation in the Russian sources. As we mentioned at the beginning of our report, Russian sources are very uneasy about the recent events, especially on the Kherson front line. We can even say this. This is the first time since the beginning of the war that we see Russian sources are so worried. So what do Russian sources tell us about the latest situation on the Kherson front line? Many important Russian sources point out that the Russian army is struggling on the Kherson front line and the Russian war leadership is not providing sufficient support to the army. In particular, in recent days, both the Ukrainian army's attacks on the Russian command and its effort to expand the bridgehead on the Kherson front line on the eastern bank of the Dnieper River have become the most important agenda item for the Russian sources. One of these Russian sources makes the following statements about the situation in question. The enemy has no intention of expanding the bridgehead near the Krinky, north of the Podstepnoe and Pechanoe. Some sources claim this, but we believe it is not true because we have received information that the zone of control of the Ukrainian armed forces is expanding from the village of Krinky southwards into the forested areas. This information has been confirmed from the field. The military command says that it will deal with the reasons for this, but we don't know when they will do so. Another frightening thing is that the use of the helicopter of the Ukrainian armed forces in Krinky area, which operated in our coastal zone, firing unguided rockets and returning back. They have never done this before. They are encouraged by the state of our army. We have already seen similar daring tactics of the Ukrainian armed forces near Robotny. The enemy used helicopters at the extremely low altitude to strike our positions. When this happened there, our army was facing a similar collapse. As you can see, the critical attacks by the Ukrainian army have caused a lot of panic in the Russian sources. We think that this panic will grow even more. We continue to believe that the Ukrainian army will achieve critical successes on the Kherson front line in the coming days. Share with me your opinion about the HIMARS attacks, the results of the attack, and the comments of the Russian sources. I read and care about all your comments.